Hey team, and welcome. I'm your host, Carrie, creator of Mother Life, your destination for all things real talk and parenting. This is the IRL group chat, where we talk about the wild balancing act of pursuing careers and passions while also doing our best to show up for our kids. Join me every week as I sit down with some badass parents in my closet and we talk about their careers, kids, and relationships and all of the weird shit that comes up when you're trying to balance the seemingly impossible. Disney movies. The ones I grew up with, at least, were captivating for the happily ever after of it all. The Little Mermaid, Cinderella, Aladdin, and as I grew older, they were replaced with the iconic rom-coms of a bygone era. You've Got Mail, Pretty Woman, Serendipity. From childhood through to early adulthood, I learned that you could recover from some pretty gnarly, complex trauma to find your perfect person and live a life that all seems very straightforward. But then what happens after? Sure, there are movies that cover the what happens after of it all, but they're not so much rom-coms anymore. They don't stick to your ribs in the same way as the stories of my youth. Today's guest had me thinking so much about what happens when dreams do come true. What does the ever after actually look like? Because in those youthful years of pursuing the dreams we make for ourselves, we also kind of forget to live in the very present. The whole youth is wasted on the young thing. But what today's guest did for me, and I hope she'll do for you, is she turned it on its head. The messiness of the ever after doesn't have to be sad because it's not sparkly and romantic. Spending time in the ever after means we get a chance to make new dreams, new stories, to proceed with a level of confidence and satisfaction that we've tried on what our younger selves wanted, embraced it, and then we set it aside in a memory box and redefined what a good life looks like. Today's guest will be familiar to any little girl like me who is making big dreams to be a journalist, to work in magazines, those golden times before the Devil Wears Prada days. Atoosa Rubenstein was the first ever editor of Cosmo Girl magazine, the youngest ever editor-in-chief of a Hearst magazine in its 100-year history. She went on to be the editor-in-chief of 17 magazine and was a staple public fixture in the New York fashion and style scene, until she decided to leave it all behind for her greatest project yet, being a mother. There is so much in this conversation, and I am working on a Substack piece to follow up with some of the things this really stirred up for me. But please listen, enjoy, share with a friend, and talk about it. There is so much in here. Before we get started, trigger warning, we do discuss child sexual abuse a few times in the first 30 minutes of the episode. If that's not for you, just meet us on the other side. Enjoy. I was really wanting to get my hair big for you, but it just...
I didn't. Well, look, I didn't color my hair. Do you see this?
Good. I love it. I don't color... I mean, I'm like starting... You can't really tell right now. You can see a little bit. I'm starting to get grays on the sides. Like,
yeah. That's the part that's a problem. Like, You don't really have to color your hair. You never have to color your hair.
Yeah.
But it's when you get it on the side that it's like a little obvi.
You know,
I'm doing it Friday, so I don't look like they're taking their grandmother out for Mother's Day.
Well, so my hair person recently said that to me. She was like, because I said, my goal is to not color my hair. Like, that would be the dream. And then once I start really going gray, I would love to, like, get, like, a silvery, like, dye it like a silvery and look like a witch, sort of. And she was like, you think that until your kids start giving you shit for looking like a witch.
Well, my kids, when I tried to do that, they were like, oh, you look like Elsa. I love that. But the truth is that you have to make sure you have the right color gray.
This is what
she was not
saying.
Everybody does, and not every skin tone looks good. So my former, I know, I won't talk to you too much about stuff that you don't want to talk about.
I do want to talk about this. This is like imagine like Atoosa, somebody was like, I'm setting you up on a friend date.
Okay.
That's what we're doing, okay?
I love it. I feel like you're already my friend because I've listened to the pod.
You're so sweet. No, I mean, you made me cry in my car yesterday, so we're clearly very close. I'm so happy that you're here. This is so cool. There's, as you know, an entire generation of journalists who, like, grew up with you. Am I remembering correctly? Did you also do like some guest judging on like America's Next Top Model or some such thing?
I did. Yes, I did that.
Yeah. So
we had our own show on MTV before that.
I was like going deep into, I don't often like to revisit my childhood, which we'll talk about because that's what got me about what you were talking about yesterday. Is I was like, oh, I don't really hang out with my younger self very often. But for this, I was, because I was thinking about like, okay, when I was like really keyed into what Atoosa was doing, I was at such a formative age. Yeah. And so it's so cool to have you here and to have this full circle thing where your motherhood and your family has informed so much about your identity in this chapter and like the decisions you're making for yourself. As a person who, when younger, your professional identity was so integral to who you were, like publicly. So I'm excited to go on the journey with you. And it is quite a journey. I mean, we're starting in Iran and we're getting to New York today. So like we're going to cover a lot. Yeah. But I'm excited about it. You've been such an open book about your journey as well that I don't think like some of our listeners, like Sarah Tan, shout out, I know she's going to listen to this episode, will know about you. But a lot of people, you know, this will be their first introduction to Atoosa. So we'll go through the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Okay, so little Atoosa, born in Iran.
Yes.
And what age were you when you moved?
I was about 3, so I was very little. Yeah.
You were very little, but not like a baby.
No, right. I was a toddler. I mean, I definitely, although I don't remember the voyage here, I very much remember that first year in America.
Wow.
Those are my first memories. I have one memory from Tehran. Everything else is from here.
So then you move here, you're 3, and were you home? Were you in preschool? How were you being cared for in that early time? And I forget, you're not an only child?
No, so I'm one of 4.
Okay. Where are you in your order?
I was not a planned pregnancy. I'm the youngest by far.
Okay.
So my eldest sister is 17 years older than me, then 15, and then 10. And who cared for me? I think that's a really good question because I don't think they thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I think they were just like balls to the wall trying to figure out this new country. At some point, I do think they were doing the best they could, but I think it was a situation that really wasn't about mothering in the way that we know mothering to be today. So they put me in preschool. They put me in a nursery school. At the time, they called it nursery school. And I didn't speak the language. So I kept getting kind of going from nursery school to nursery school to nursery school because I would just go and cry. And then finally, there was a nursery school where the owner had a very big dog. And I would just go to her office, and the entire day, I would just sit there and like pet the dog, almost like in a meditative way.
Yeah.
Probably in a extremely anxious way. But I remember that's the one I stayed at. And
is this in New York?
In Queens.
In Queens.
Yeah, which is a borough. And
which is a borough?
A borough of New York City. So it's not Manhattan. And that's where I first experienced like Halloween, and I didn't know what it was. It was very frightening to me. To this day, like anything with like a pumpkin spice, blah, 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 like I want to die. I have, one of my kids is a teenager, and she's very into, pumpkin spice. It's autumn time. Right. And all I think about is trauma. I fucking hate dogs, and I know I hate dogs
interesting.
Because of that. I connect it with that experience. Yeah.
Wow,
that could have really gone. Dogs.
That could have really gone the other way, where you could have been like, and now I have 25 dogs.
No. I think I don't I'm not afraid of dogs. Like I just want nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
And so we lived in a 2-family home in Queens. And that we were renting while my father kind of found his sea legs. And the woman who lived below us was in an abusive relationship with her partner. So I would hear them screaming. It would get physical. We would have to call the police. Like, it was really, there was like a group of kids in the neighborhood with sticks that would chase us.
Jesus
it was the
Christ.
Summer of Sam, which you may be too young to know, but it was a serial killer in the area. I mean, it was just horrific, to be honest
Anxiety.
Yeah, it was like very anxiety inducing.
And as the youngest of 4, with a huge age gap like that, I could also imagine there's this thing of like, oh, we've done this before, like, you'll be fine, and just kind of like, you just like be where the adults are and kind of like be pleasant to be around and just chill.
Just be quiet. And
don't have needs.
Yeah, it's funny, I just recently, you were speaking about your mom giving you a bunch of stuff from her home, and I was going through a bunch of stuff from my childhood home as well, and I found a report card, and it was from 2nd grade, and the teacher was like, she's just so quiet. She said it like I could almost like hear her saying, she's so sweet and so just so quiet. And up until 4th grade, the report cards would say like English is still hard. A challenge for Atoosa. Yeah. I would say probably by 5th grade. 4th grade, I made my first friend. Like, before that, I don't think I could communicate well enough to communicate about the things that kids that age talk about.
Wait, we have to pause for a second. In 4th grade, you made your first friend.
Yeah, Katie
How
Mutha.
Fucking lonely up until 4th grade. Because you are a fully actualized person well before 4th grade.
Yes.
How fucking lonely.
It was really lonely. What I would do is I would take my lunch money and I would buy, at the time, like lunch I think was $1, and then you could buy desserts like brownies for 25 cents, and I'd take my $1 and I'd buy 4 brownies instead of lunch, and I would just give them out to kids during recess.
Yeah.
So that they would talk to me, but they didn't. They would just hit, not in a mean way.
Yeah.
But they'd take the brownie and then they'd go play.
You're right.
And so then I was just like, and so that didn't work. But Katie Modica was a really good friend for me because her mom was divorced, and so she was also like, not that my parents were divorced, but like there was a sense of other about her too.
Yeah.
And she kind of she had an older brother who like listened to Led Zeppelin, and so I was very like, oh, tell me about that.
Yeah.
Because that was not my experience within my family.
I cannot imagine. And so I imagine on one end of the spectrum, family is like 4th child, like you figure it out, you'll learn English eventually, But was it as you got older, like a strict home? Were there curfews, or was it kind of like just do fine and we're fine?
Yeah, I mean, I think culturally Iranian families are strict. Yeah. I remember once and this is like high school, my dad saw me talking to a boy. Mind you, it's like the nerdiest boy in my school. He went to MIT. He was a senior. Like, he probably went to MIT through his PhD. Like, that's how, like, the kind of guy he was. And my father was like, I saw you talking to that boy. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I was asking him when the next debate club meeting is. You know what I mean? So, yes.
That future engineer is nothing but trouble.
I'm sure he's like a rocket scientist by now. But, so, yeah, they were strict, but it wasn't even, like, it was just I couldn't do anything. Like, if a friend had a brother, I couldn't go there for a play date, stuff like that.
Well, that's ironic, surely, given what you've been pretty public about in, your story.
Well, and that's the thing I talk about a lot is, like, so many parents are concerned about the perpetrator outside. But in many instances, the perpetrator's in the home, as it was for me, because I started being sexually abused at age 8.
I was going to ask. Okay, so this is early in your story, 8.
Yeah.
And I know that you've mentioned before, like, you sort of typical immigrant dynamic, first generation, where you've got a lot of people in and out of the home, family members, people also coming over, and you had lots of different people living with you at different times. What sort of was that like, and with the four siblings, when you were growing up, a lot of them were already out of the house, right?
Yeah, well, one sister is intellectually disabled, so she never left.
Yeah. So
she's there. The other sister, left. My brother, when I was in 4th grade, went away to college and never came back. So, yeah, it sucked. But, I mean, in retrospect, I can say, like, it really sucked. At the time, everything sucked.
Yeah.
Like, I can't give you an experience that didn't suck, like...
Yeah.
When Pizza Hut was invented, that didn't suck. That was really exciting. But in terms of, and reading books, like I loved to read. Judy Blume didn't suck. So I'd just go to my room. I didn't have a room, but I'd go somewhere and I would just read and read and read. But in terms of real life, my real life sucked. So for these people to be coming in and out, and like I said, I didn't have a room. So when a room was vacant, rather than it becoming my room finally, which would be my dream, it would go to whoever the relative is. And I would just, I want to say I shared my mom's room with her until I was 15.
Wow. Yeah.
Like
no
in her bed.
No privacy.
No, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I'm now discovering that I don't know what privacy is with small children.
With your own,
but growing up, obviously, or not obviously, for me, that was something I didn't realize was as important as it was. It's interesting, by the way, that you mentioned Pizza Hut and then immediately mentioned reading, because I don't know if they had this program yet. When I was doing my Pizza Hut days, which by the way was a very nice meal out with the family. You would go to Pizza Hut. They had those awesome stained glass like lights over the tables.
Yeah, it was fancy.
The red marbled plastic cups with the crushed ice. They had like a reading program where you brought in like a little card, and if you had read a book, they would give you this little jeweled sticker that would go on your reading card.
That.
And if you filled up a line on the card, you got a free personal pizza. So for me, when you said pizza and reading, that was such a big relationship for me. Pizza
Core
Hut
memory.
And reading. 100%. Absolutely. And like, wow, fancy night out at a
We
restaurant.
had something like that was like balloons, like you could launch balloons based on how many books you read, which of course is not very environmentally friendly today. But that's like, that gets to the core, because you're a mother and your audience are mothers. Like, I remember it was based on summer reading.
Yeah.
And I remember
summer reading was huge. Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the summer, I was like, wow, if only somebody had signed me up for this, I could have launched like 10 balloons. But nobody signed me up for anything.
Right.
There was no after school activity for me. There was no even like something like a reading contest. My parents just, they were totally not engaged with the school. Probably because that's not the culture of where we're from. Like the school does school stuff and then they feed me or whatever.
I think also the the level of engagement that's expected now is also just skyrocketed. Like but like
you could sign your kid up for a reading thing at school.
Yes. Yeah. It's more like the parent volunteerism has skyrocketed rather than the like basic, there's a thing going on that costs me nothing that I can sign my kid up for.
Right. Yeah.
And what was the relationship like with your parents? What kind of mom, what kind of dad, in sort of the archetypes of parents would you say you had?
I think the best they could be, but I don't think that they fit an archetype that we really have in this culture.
Yeah.
Being from Iran, we're from a culture of child brides. Yeah. And so, like, my grandmother was age 14 when she married a 40-something-year-old man who had another wife. Can you, I have a 16-year-old. I think to myself, when she was 14 and in her anime phase, like that, I'm like, I'm going to give you to this 40-something-year-old man, and now you have to procreate with him. Horrific. How would she treat that child? So I was raised by that child. You know what I mean? Like, so that's who she learned how to raise a child from. Yeah. So it's, I got hit. It's not none of it is, it's not a complaint. Yeah. It's just
facts.
So interesting. Yeah.
Anthropological.
Yeah, like really, like she is somebody who is probably would be considered the nicest person you'd ever meet.
Yeah.
Like everybody in my family, very mild mannered, very sweet, but abusive emotionally, physically. Wouldn't talk to me like from age 6. If I did something very, very, I don't even know what a 6-year-old could do. Could possibly not talk to me for a week to 2 weeks.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Like, I'm talking, don't talk to me. Like, just put the food on the table, no eye contact.
So damaging.
And so it's interesting. I mean, it's damaging, but I also feel something in that childhood gave me some level of awareness that I needed to heal. You know, like I didn't have some horrendous thing. I wasn't a drunk or a drug addict. I didn't get fired. I didn't do anything horrific and hit rock bottom. So something in that childhood, and I think it's probably spirituality. I think that, you know, they were pretty spiritual people. But that made me know something's not right here in the foundation, and let me fix it.
Yeah. Let me fix it.
Let me fix it.
Yeah, you were doing the fixing, and
fix it for me.
Oh, fix it for you.
For me.
Okay.
Like when I was older. At the time, I just was trying to like
survive,
sort of dodge, like not get my ass kicked.
And did you raise to your parents? Wait, what was your dad like before we get to that? Was he just sort of like stereotypical provider, not super engaged, or
so
what was he like?
I'm going to tell you something.
I'm ready.
And I'm not going to get deep into it.
That's fine.
I just found out that my dad was not my dad. So I'm 53 years old.
Atoosa.
And my entire life, I've been kind of like making reasons why I don't look like my siblings, why I'm so different than them, even in terms of my just my way. Like I always felt like such a bull in a china shop.
Yeah.
Because they are such nice, sweet people.
Right.
And not to say I'm not a nice, sweet person. Maybe I have some of that, but I'm really kind of not. I'm like kind of a beast. And and I was always like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Like, why can I not be like them? And in this moment, I don't want to talk too much about it because it's new information.
You're fucking processing a juggernaut.
I'm processing.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that this is the missing puzzle piece of my life. Everything makes sense now.
How long ago did you find this out?
A few months ago.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. I mean, fresh, really fresh across the desk. That is a fascinating thing. We'll look forward to following up with you.
And the who of it is even more fascinating. Like the who is the real father is like insane.
That's the aha.
It's an aha, but it's also noteworthy. It's not like Joe Schmo.
Watch this space, everybody. Atoosa will come back to us in like a year once we've sifted through. But it is really, I mean, it's interesting. There's so many different pieces here that obviously have had an impact on who you are and how. But like, there's some DNA, Atoosa, the person that decided how to respond to this environment. I look at my siblings and I'm the youngest. We're all very different. I come from a divorced house, and it was a pretty gnarly divorce. And they got divorced when I was really little. And how we all responded to that divorce is extremely different to this day, like our personalities. And I very much was in your boat, where I was just like, your boat, I'm still on my journey to get to where you are. But the boat of...
How old were you when they got divorced?
2.
Oh,
so I don't really remember, which is, I honestly think is better in some ways. But I was like, I'm going to achieve. I'm going to do really well. I'm going to like get noticed by being a good girl. I'm going to get noticed this way. Because my sister had already taken the spot of like getting noticed by being a bad girl, quote, bad girl. She's like the best human being in the world. but like
Rebel.
went on. She was the rebel, and my brother was to an extent as well. But like he was the musical prodigy, and that was sort of his thing. So everyone had their thing. So I'm like, okay, well my thing is gonna be like getting A's. I'm gonna be the president of everything. I'm gonna do super well, and I wanted to be a writer, and like that wasn't. My mom was like, do whatever. My dad was kind of like, does that make money? Whereas it was okay for my brother because he was a prodigy. It's harder to be like a young prodigy and prove that as a writer when you're young. But I was just like, if I get good enough, which is one of the things you said in this last, your sort of sign off, if I get good enough, then they'll really notice that I'm worth paying attention to.
Right. And what I didn't know at the time though, and this could have only happened because I left my job and made understanding myself, my inward gaze, my full-time job to find this missing puzzle piece. Because the fact is, I wasn't like them.
Yeah.
And because of me, many things in their lives shifted and changed, and I was associated with a tremendous trauma.
Yeah.
And that is why.
Yeah.
The whole time I was thinking I'm doing something wrong, like it's me. And in some ways it is, but it's not. It's not anything I could control. It isn't really me. But I wasn't wrong that there was something there.
Yes. And when you're saying the trauma is obviously the sexual abuse.
No, the trauma is that
No, that wasn't the trauma.
No, I mean that was that was a trauma in my life for sure. But it's, believe it or not, like that was an easy one to process, because easy for someone devoted to processing it.
Yes.
Because I know it happened. Nobody's saying it didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like I'm processing it.
There's like a societal norm as well that is wrong.
Right, 100%. Like, so you can do the work as long as you have the resources, which I'm privileged and lucky enough to have. But no, the trauma I'm talking about is the fact that my birth there was this big secret around my creation.
Right.
That kind of everybody knew, but nobody talked about. And nobody even thought to tell me.
Wow. And
it impacted everybody on a very big level. And so to me, that was a bigger, it's like an onion. Like, okay, so you deal with the sexual abuse. Okay, great. Now deal with the And then there was this last remaining piece.
Yeah.
That just kind of like clicked into place. So that to me was the bigger trauma. And like when we talk about the piece that you read, that I wrote, I think it was my last Substack, was this idea that all I've ever wanted was to have a close family.
Yes.
And the reason I didn't have it because there was this big family secret.
And by the way, when you wrote that, and I listened to it, so it was like all the more intimate because you're like talking to me in my car. You hadn't figured that out yet.
No.
So what you were saying,
I knew
at the time, you were attributing the lack of closeness in your family. You're like, it's a cultural thing.
Could be.
Like you were trying to explore. And what's funny is hearing you say this is now when I listen to that, and I'll put a link in the show notes if you guys also want to listen to it. I do recommend it. Is at the time when you kind of said offhandedly, like, it's a cultural thing or whatever, I was just like, I know Persian families. I don't know if that's right. I don't know.
Like I can, we only know what's normal in our family.
Yeah.
And I knew we were not close. And everyone's very nice, but we were not close. And we were not close because there was this gigantic secret.
Did your siblings know?
I don't think they're surprised. Okay. I think that they're, when we moved to America, it was incredibly abrupt. The story, it's funny when I was working, at one point I was on Charlie Rose, and a friend of mine who's Lebanese saw it. And in there, Charlie asked about when we moved to America, and I kind of told him the story I'd always been told. And my Lebanese friend was like, that doesn't add up. And the moment he said that, I flashed to a scene. And that scene involves the person who is my birth father. Can you believe it? And at the time, I did not think that's my father. Right. I just thought he has something to do with why we came, maybe. And, but I just kind of like we push things down. And even this news, like I matched on 23andMe with the person who ends up being my first cousin a year ago. And he has the same last name as that man. And I just was like, oh, it's a common name. Right. You know what I mean? And
You're like Persians.
Yeah. I just was like, and it's weird. Like we're such a close relation and I don't know him. But then I had a cousin of mine, like a second cousin, a younger man, more like your age, who's like cool, and he's like a DJ, and I was like, hey, will you? And he's on my dad's side. I was like, hey, will you do 23andMe? I have a selfish reason for wanting you to do it, but it is kind of cool. And he did it, and we didn't match. So that's when I called
Atoosa the journalist at work.
But it took me like a year to have the courage to be like, okay, I'm ready to know now.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So in the backdrop of this, like, I don't fit in here, I'm up until 4th grade figuring out how to communicate. I'm starting to make friends at around 4th grade. Do you think just the lack of facility in the English language and not having that, do you think that was a driver in sort of what you ended up becoming interested in professionally?
I think that the magazines gave me a portal to the world of the ideal teenager. And right. I didn't have access to that. I also am not necessarily from a place, like I'm from kind of a blue collar area in Long Island. So I wasn't quite interested in the style or the shtick of the girls kind of above me, older than me. They weren't aspirational to me. And so I found that aspiration in magazines. And so I think that's probably what led to it. And yeah, I mean, I guess if you're kind of an outsider, you're looking for belonging, you know, and I guess I found that somewhat in magazines.
And so as you're going through high school and thinking about what happens after high school, what are you entertaining as like the world of possibilities for you?
Well, something did change for me. And that is, as I got older and into high school, I kind of became a hottie. And it happened overnight. Like I had like the best body in the school. And I say that because like we would laugh about it because I was still like kind of nerdy, but I had a really good body.
This came up this week. Somebody who we recorded earlier this week, she was like, and then I got boobs.
Yeah.
You know, it is a part of the female experience, or not, but like what your body does in those years does have a huge impact on your social experience.
100%. So I was like 5'10", 120 pounds.
You're 5'10"?
Boobs. Yeah. Big
I'm 5'10".
boobs.
You don't.
Oh, that's funny.
I love that. We'll have to do a back-to-back sometime.
Yeah. And, so I started kind of getting, and as like how my parents were strict, that made me be naughty, you know, behind the scenes. So everything was a secret. So I was going out. I was like, not like I was drinking or anything like that. I wouldn't go that far. I was just very interested in boys, probably because I had been sexualized in the sexual abuse. So I was just always looking for the male eye and male attention, and sneaking out and that kind of, never, like, very rarely getting caught. So that I just, like, we can't skip over my slutty Atoosa stage, because it was very real, and it went until the end of college. So it was like a big era. And I love that girl, that version.
Wild and free, and not judging herself, and just kind of going for what she wanted.
Judging herself in pain. I mean, it's like struggling, but like looked amazing doing it. Like, you know, was a total dumpster fire. Like, very sad. I mean, it's like, I wish I could, you know, just be a shoulder for that girl who just wanted love, and was going about it the totally wrong way. But so I think because I got a lot of male attention, and I also started working in the city as a young person, like age 12. I was working in the summer full time in the city.
Doing what?
The first summer I was working, like, my mom's friend had a company, so I was like an assistant. So I'd like answer phones and do filing. My mom basically pulled me out of camp because I got too much male attention.
Sure.
So then I was working, which was great because I had money for clothes then. I get so much male attention, I thought like I could be a model, you know, especially being like really thin and really tall. And I remember, again, no one was doing things for me, so I would like call all the modeling agencies and go on like open calls. And I went to this one open call, and this is now I'm in college maybe. In high school I just did like the 17 show at the mall, like,
yeah,
you know,
oh, totally.
up,
yeah,
back to school fashion. And I went, and this woman looked at me and she's like, "You're a really pretty girl." She said, "I bet a lot of guys look at you." And I was like, "They do." And she's like, "You know, you can be a pretty girl and still not be right to be a model. Like, to be a model, you need like your features have to be like a very specific proportion." She was like, "But you can go out into the world and be a very pretty girl and do something else, and that will almost like amplify you." Do you know what I'm saying?
100%, yeah.
And she didn't say like be a smart pretty girl, but that's kind of how I heard it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, got it. Okay, I wasn't even destroyed. I was just like, thanks for the advice.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, the next best thing, because like I was just thinking of what do I like? I love clothes and fashion. And so then I got an internship. Yeah. So
where were you interning?
The first internship I got in magazines, well, it was supposed to be at Rolling Stone. And it was the summer between my sophomore and junior year. And I called to confirm like a week before, and the guy was like, "Oh, so-and-so didn't call you?" And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Oh, we had to give your internship to Jan's nephew," or something like that, Jan Wenner. And I was like, fuck. And like for me, like a lot of people in magazines back then, maybe today too, I don't know, but back then it was like very much a rich kids industry, like a lot of nepotism. And I certainly did not have any connections. So I was just like, oh, I knew this was too good to be true. So I somehow got an internship through a Delta Gamma. I was at an AKO, but
where'd you go to school again? I forget.
Barnard.
Right, of course, yeah.
And a DG was like, "Oh, I used to work at Lang Communications, and I think they need somebody." And so I got a PR internship at Lang Communications, and they were the parent company of Sassy and Ms. and Working Woman and Working Mother and Success. And so I did that for the summer, and I was really good. I was so committed. And they were like, "Well, you're so awesome. Like, how can we help you?" And I was like, "Can you get me an internship at Sassy?" And they did. They put in a good word, and I started there in the fall. And there I was just like such a dork, very much an outsider again. Chloe Sevigny was like the summer intern, and they were all like, Chloe.
Sure.
And I was like the big dorky intern that like tucked my skirt into my underwear, like very, very clunky and just like like I thought I was making the right fashion choices, but for that crowd it was all wrong.
Yeah.
But I would just like being an outsider, I'm like a really good observer. I understand why some people thought I was very quiet, because that's when I'm in sort of observing mode. And so I was very quiet at Sassy, and I just was like kind of learning how to dress cool, honestly.
Let me
and
know. Well,
I did that for a couple of years.
Still figuring that out.
Me too. But yeah, so I did that for a couple of years. And I also worked at clothing stores on Columbus, because that did not pay Sassy. And then I got a paid magazine internship at another place called American Health that wasn't cool, but it paid really well. It was owned by Reader's Digest, so I did that and Sassy. I basically made it so that my classes, by the time I was like a junior and senior in college, were around my internship schedule, because I worked at 2 different magazines.
And as this is all going on, your parents are just like, okay, like you're busy and you're keeping yourself busy. You seem fine.
My dad died when I was 16, so that happened. And my mom, I don't know. They didn't know.
Are you guys still in touch?
Yes. She's probably at the end of her life. So she's 92. She's been, when you're, her body is starting to shut down. So right now she's in the hospital, but she's it's toward the end of her life.
And as you've kind of gone through your own journey of being pretty like, you've done your private healing with your close friends and, your confidants, and then you have been more public about exploring all of these different facets to your life and difficulties. How has she taken that?
I don't know. I mean...
Not a big communicator, that one.
I don't think... I'm not saying anything that's false. I don't think she's mad about it. I think she just wants to be in relationship. I think she feels bad about some things, but I think she feels, and I agree, that she was doing the best that she could.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that.
No,
I'm not like mad at her. Like when I had my first child, I was mad at her. When I was working, I very much worshipped her, and everything was for her. Like the first paycheck I got as the editor-in-chief of Cosmo Girl, I paid off the mortgage on her house. I got her a red Mercedes. Constantly getting her jewelry.
Yeah.
And I was like that until I left working and had my first child. And then when I had that baby, I was like, what?
Right.
You did what?
Yeah.
To this like little thing that cannot do anything. Like, I was horrified. And so that took me a few years to get over like true rage. Because I just had never had experience with a baby. I never thought of it that way, that they're so innocent. And so I accept her for who she is. And
but she wasn't like, I could see there's a version of a mom who's like, fuck you, like don't air our dirty laundry, like, you can say this shit to me privately, but like you're putting this out in the world to be consumed, like that shit's embarrassing. I don't want my friends knowing this or whatever.
I think 100 there must be people in my family who think that.
Yeah. But you're not getting like excommunicated for it.
Nobody has even brought it up to me. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. Like, that's the closeness or the lack of closeness I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like say something. Like, I know you're seeing it. Maybe my mom's not even seeing it. But certainly some people in my family have seen it.
Yeah.
But they're just zippo, nothing.
Fascinating. It's kind of waspy, actually.
It is very, I think it is. My mom is from like a super wealthy family. And so I think that observation is not wrong. I think the worst thing that one could do in my family is to show any emotion.
Yeah, very British royal family.
And that's all I want, is to be connected, to show emotion and love and connection and anger if it needs to be.
Yeah.
All of it.
I respect that immensely. So, okay, so you now we're at the point where you're fully on your journey to becoming Atoosa the journalist. And
editor. I don't really think of myself as a journalist, but that's
interesting.
Nice of you. I mean, a journalist? I don't know. A journalist to me is like a reporter or a writer. I was a fashion editor who became an editor-in-chief. So I think of myself more as an editor.
That's so... I guess the distinction is so interesting to me because I obviously, in my mind, as somebody who has worked under editors, always viewed my editor as like the final truth teller of like deciding how something is framed or whatever. So ultimately controlling how information is consumed.
Yeah, and to me that's an editor, but not necessarily a journalist.
Got it.
But that's just,
I like that. No, I like I like a fresh hot take on something I've probably taken for granted my entire professional life in terms of what I think about. So, okay, so Atoosa the editor, then obviously comes 17 comes first, right?
No,
Cosmo Girl comes first. So tell me a little bit about that entry.
Well, at the time I was the fashion editor at Cosmo. I think I was senior fashion editor. So I was very, again, mediagenic. I was always in like Bill Cunningham's column in the New York Times. Very cool fashion-wise, I thought.
And how old were you at this time? Sorry, how old were you?
26. 26. Like I want to figure out like the best way to sort of get into this story. So, do you want to hear a funny psychic story?
Yeah, of course. Love a little bit of woo-woo.
Because this is a part of like the legend, and that's like. So I feel like we need to start with it. So when I was about, first year out of college, like my freshman year at Cosmo, let's call it. I was an assistant freshman year at Cosmo. And my college boyfriend had broken up with me. I was like a train wreck. I was on Paxil because like I just couldn't get my shit together and get to work. I was just like, a mess. And my friend, who was this model fucker in New York, but very connected, older than me, was like, gave me this number of a woman and was like, call her, like, you need her. And she was a psychic. Now, I had no idea really what a psychic was.
Right.
Because at the time, again, remember, there's no internet. Like, we don't know, like, a psychic, like, I can't think I've heard of that. Okay, fine. And it was $150, which is a shit ton of money to me at the time. I didn't have it. He's like, trust me, you need to go. And I walk into her office. The first thing she says is, why are you crying about this guy? Ari's waiting for you. Now, that was the name of my husband. Of course, I've never met him. And I don't really know how, like, real a psychic is. So I'm thinking she means Ali, like some Persian guy. And I was thinking, oh, my God, that's like my dentist's son. Like, they're trying to hook me up with him. Like, no. And then she goes on and she says, I don't know what you do. And I remember I was wearing overalls. Denim overalls, because I was doing a lot of returns. Like, I was like the messenger at that day. And she's like, I don't know what you do, but I see you surrounded by shoes, which was true. I was the shoe editor, even though I was an assistant. And she's like, there's a very famous, controversial older woman at the top of what you do. And now, to me, at age like 20, 21, everybody is old, right? I thought the 28-year-old was a hag.
Right.
And so... But of course she's talking about Helen Gurley Brown.
Right.
Now I don't get this until later. She's like, this controversial famous older woman doesn't know this, but the men in suits above her are talking, and she did this with her hands. And she's going to be replaced. And she's going to be replaced by a much younger woman. That woman's going to come with a man, and that man's going to like you. And you are going to rise and rise and rise. And ultimately, like where you work now, she's like, there's going to be a baby, and it's your destiny to be the head of the baby. And
this is some crazy shit.
It's crazy shit. And so it's true. So a couple of years later, Helen Gurley Brown gets replaced by Bonnie Fuller, who comes with Donald Robertson. And I'll always remember the day I ran into them right after the announcement was made. I ran into them in the lobby, and he and I just like kind of locked eyes. And it's true. They started putting me in the magazine, like, oh, this is what Atoosa's wearing this season, or blah blah blah, and they really built up my profile. Back then that wasn't happening. Today there is a lot of like people behind the scenes being in front of the scenes. That did not exist back then at all. And then I remembered what the psychic said, because all these things have come true. At this point I'm married to Ari. She did say, I didn't say to marry him when I And she said that before I married him, too. I was just like, guess what, Terry? I'm getting married to the guy you said. She's like, I didn't say to marry him. I was like, oh, too late.
Whoopsies.
Whoopsies is right. But I remembered what she said, that a baby was going to be born. And so at one point, Bonnie Fuller had asked me, hey, we're doing an All About Men issue of Cosmo. Who do you think would be a great editor-in-chief? And I'm remembering what the psychic said. And I was like, how about me? And she was like, ah, ha, 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 ha. She's like laughing. She's like, oh, Atoosa, we're looking for a real editor. You're a fashion girl. And I was like, ha, 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 of course.
I was kidding too, totally.
I was like horrified. But I was like, okay, well, I guess she doesn't get everything 100% right. But when Bonnie left to go to Glamour, I didn't ask to follow her along with the rest of our team, because I kind of knew I had a limit with her. Like she didn't really see me the way that I wanted to be seen. And sure enough, shortly after, when Kate White took over for Bonnie at Cosmo, she said something similar. She said, but it was about a teen magazine. She was like, Hearst is thinking about just doing a teen magazine. Would you be interested in just giving your opinions, since you used to work at Sassy, to Kathy Black? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like at this point, I was like, I wasn't even thinking that. And so that ended up becoming Cosmo Girl.
And were you feeling, when you got the call to take this job, like what was going through your head? Like, yes, I'm ready.
It wasn't really a call. I mean, they said, I went to this meeting. The meeting before me was with Ron Galati. She was having a meeting before me with Ron Galati, who is the guy Mr. Big is based on from Sex and the City. So that to me was already like check plus. That's all I need. I can't wait to tell everybody. But we had a great conversation. And at the end of that conversation, she said, well, why don't you do a project for me? And I was like, yeah, sure. All right. See ya. And then the editor-in-chief of Cosmo was like, dude, it sounds like you're up for the editor-in-chief job. And so she told me what that meant, that, to create, I think it was 3 tables of contents, covers, blah, 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 whatever. And so I did that. And then at the end of that meeting, when I showed it to her a few days later, she said, I think we have ourselves a magazine. And so I was just like, yep, we have ourselves a magazine. Again, I didn't know what that meant. And I was just kind of too shy to ask. I just was always very much somebody who played it cool.
Yeah.
And so what was going through my head was, I didn't know until the day I stopped working that when you get a green light at work, it doesn't mean you have to go. Like, doesn't mean you have to say yes.
Yeah.
I just thought every time I got a green light, I would say yes. Like, it was like, yes, yes, yes. Oh, and now you want to go to 17? We bought 17 for you. And I'm like, yes. Now do you want to do this? And now do you want to do this? And at a certain point, I realized that just because the light is green doesn't mean I have to go. And that was when I left.
And all in the backdrop of this, so you said 26 you were still at Cosmo.
Well, 26 I created Cosmo Girl.
Cosmo Girl. That's also the year you met your husband?
No, I met him when I was 23.
Oh, okay. All right.
Married him when I'm 26 and started Cosmo Girl the same year. And then, ironically, he and I got separated in 2002, and then that's when I moved to 17.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now,
but we got back together
quickly. So, when you're thinking about what a life partner should look like
today,
no, then I'm sure it's a very different answer now. Then what was it about him that you were like, I want to marry this guy? Or was this like I got a green light, so I'm going to go for it?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think that my prior relationship was so tumultuous and passionate and crazy. And again, remember, it ended with me being medicated because I was just so out of sorts and dysregulated. And I knew that my number one priority was to be successful and to kind of prove my worthiness. And although I wouldn't have phrased it that way, to prove my worthiness, I now know that's what I was trying to do. And he was a perfect partner for that. Of course, 100% I loved him. He was my best friend, like loved hanging out with him, total partner in crime, but also enormously supportive, wherein the guys that I am naturally wired to want to be with suck the life out of you. You know, they're constantly they're narcissistic. They need you to pick them over anything else. And I knew I couldn't do that. And so I picked somebody that was supportive, probably to a fault. I mean, I could work 48 hours a day and he'd be like, I'll bring lunch, or I'll bring dinner. But that's what I needed at the time. And he was so supportive, and he would read the articles for me too. Like, he was supportive even in that way professionally. So he was really the perfect partner for what those goals were for me back then.
And then what was it that made you say, this is relationships no longer serving us?
Oh, you mean after 25 years? Or like the 4 years in and we got separated?
Well, I guess let's start with the 4 years in, because that's where there's smoke, there's fire.
4 years in, I was just thinking, like, I want more pushback. Like, this feels like you're doing whatever I want. And I am very type A. I'm a very bossy person, super controlling. And I just wanted more pushback. Yeah. And he just was so supportive. So we got separated, but then I got 17 and I really needed that support. Yeah. I needed it. And so we got back together. In the end, I think after 25 years, I think for him, he wanted a different, when I was successful, there's almost like a direct chart to when I stopped working and his success. And I think his best life and my best life are not aligned. Like mine, I remember, like, for Mother's Day, he would plan something for just he and I. And I'd be like, where are the kids? Yeah. And I am just like super, not that he absolutely loves our kids, 100%. But he really wants to live his best life. And for me, I feel I lived my best life in that way. Like, I traveled everywhere. I've worn everything. I've looked like a slut when I could pull it off. And I did it all. I fucked a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like, I've done it all. And now I just want to be like the ground under which my kids can walk, like the stability for my children. That's all I want. Like, I don't want to go away with him. Right. I don't. Yeah. I just don't. I do want to go away by myself sometimes. Yeah. Like, when they're with him, that's why divorce is like a perfect solution for me.
Yeah.
So I have those times, and I am partnered with somebody, which I could tell you about, but I knew I couldn't be with anybody who didn't prioritize my kids the same way. Like I was with another guy that was just like the college boyfriend right after my divorce, and I remember he was like, oh, like your kids are always FaceTiming, and I was just like,
you're like, bye boy, bye.
Yes, they are, you freak show.
Yeah. You're the interloper here, sir.
100%. So like, and there are some people who want to feel, I don't know, glamorous and gorgeous and want to be whisked away. I don't want that. I've experienced that. I don't need it. I'm good.
Yeah.
I just want to be like a frumpy mommy who my kids say my ass jiggles. I'm
and
like,
they feel cozy with you. They feel cozy.
They're like, Mommy, your belly's so soft and smushy. I'm like, yes.
Thank you so much. It's because you all lived in there. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So when you became a parent for the first time, you have 3 kids, right?
Yes. Yep.
What was your idea then? I'm sure it's evolved and changed as it always seems to do, but like, what was your idea then about what kind of mom you wanted to be? How old were you when you had your first kid?
Maybe 36.
So you're 36.
I was married 10 years, and I was thinking, no way, I'm never going to have kids. Just because my own childhood was so tumultuous. Like, why would I want to do that?
Yeah.
And so I didn't have a plan, to be honest. My daughter, my eldest, and I always laugh about it. Like, thank you for being my crash test dummy.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. But in the same way that I knew when I left my job, it did not make sense to anybody, but it made perfect sense to me.
Right.
Like, it was like, I often like refer to it as when an apple is ready to come off a tree, you know, because you take your kids apple picking, I'm sure.
Of course, you got to do all that shit.
But it just like pops right off.
Yes.
When you're going like this and yanking it, not ready. That's not going to be a good apple. Yeah. So it was so obvious to me, like this is done for me, this chapter. But I didn't know what was next. First, I thought I was going to take over the internet, you know, and I had my agent was CAA, and I was going on all these meetings with all these people, and none of it all seemed very half-baked to me. Like, it wasn't there yet, wherein I was coming from a place that just like such a legacy. Like, now, of course, the magazines are kaput and no one cares about them. Yeah. But at the time, it was like a really well-oiled machine. And then I was seeing these yahoos, pun intended, and they really did not have their content shit together. And I was like, I don't want to fuck up my legacy. Like, I'm just going to take a break. And I didn't know what else to do, honestly. And then I got pregnant. I was like, oh, well, here's something to do. And that was it.
And then
I didn't have a vision.
Didn't have a vision. Well, no. I think it's also kind of hard to have a vision with the first, because, like, at least for me, I wasn't doing this like deep internal work of like reflecting on my childhood and thinking about what it might be like to be a parent and how I would maybe want to do things differently. For me, that came once I was confronted with novel situations and being like, I don't want to handle this the same way, or like, I like this about something we did. Now, then you have twins, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what's the age difference between the twins and
4 years. And I didn't know, like, the twins thing. That psychic had said I was going to have twins. I thought she was talking about my cats.
Is she still in practice? Like, should we?
We're very good friends, but she's not in practice.
Sad
but
for the rest of us.
What's funny is I always thought she meant my cats. And but I did have twins, and I didn't know you could have twins unless you're doing like IVF or something. But in fact, you can have twins even if it's not in your family.
Yeah, my sister had twins, and it's not in our family.
Yeah. So it was really kind of, I think that everything accelerated with the twins, because there's something about twins. it really is, it's magical. And I don't know if your sister experienced it in all ways. Like, it was a real accelerant for me because it was so challenging.
I still to this day.
How old are hers?
They're 11 or 12.
Okay, so same.
And they're identical, and they're wild boys, and she is an incredible person who works very hard, but like, she works as a guidance counselor at a public school. She does not making loads of money, and I think about all of the resources I have and like helping me to manage my 2 children and to keep my sanity, and she doesn't have that same level of infrastructure, and I am constantly in awe of how it all gets done.
Totally. And
to this very day,
even like even if you were able to equalize that stuff, the taking 2 like beings, like souls, and integrating them into your life and into your heart and into your consciousness at the same time, there's just something really, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's challenging. And that their creation definitely pushed me deeper into, I think, my journey.
And wanting to be with them.
Well, you mean to not work?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, yes.
To not work out of the home, Atoosa. You're doing a shit ton of work. Let's be clear.
I do a shit ton of work. I do zero laundry. Like, zero laundry is my meditation. So, meaning, like, the laundry is done at all times. Like, there's never laundry to be done. Like, I'm doing it all the time.
Do you have a in-unit situation?
I do.
Because you would need to for this.
I do, and I have a very high Con Ed bill because of my little zero laundry thing. But yes. So, do I want to be with them? Yeah, I don't see it as like, I just don't know how I could possibly, with the childhood I had and my own foundation, I couldn't do both. It's not a possibility. Yeah. So I have built my life in a way so that I can be with them and not be stressed about it and be very focused. And that's, I don't want to say it's my job, but in some ways it is my job. It's just to, for this time that they're home, just create the most stable foundation I can in juxtaposition to how unstable mine was.
Well, you referred to it as your calling, which I think is apt. You have referred to it as your calling before. Yeah. It's just like a deep sense of purpose that you are where you're supposed to be in this moment.
100%. This is it. Like, there's nothing else. I had a dream for myself. That dream was to be an editor-in-chief. Okay, check. That didn't give me what I thought it was going to give me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there was this, it didn't make me feel satisfied, sated. And so I continued my journey. This makes me feel sated.
Yeah.
And it's so small. My life is so small. Like, if you ask me, what did I do today? Other than take them all to school and obviously do all the morning stuff. As part of my zero laundry, I've done like probably 4 loads of laundry, folded them all, did everybody's supplements. Like, I have these like supplement bags for like the next 2 weeks. Getting those things right so that they feel cared for and that they feel seen, so that they don't feel like they need to go into the world to prove their worthiness. Like, they're worthy, like they're worthy of my time and attention. They don't really know that they know I used to work, but they don't really know, obviously, because they just know. Sometimes people come up to me and say, oh my gosh, like, or we were at Sephora the other day and a very nice woman was like, are you Atoosa? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, why does that woman know you? Like, they know that happens. And they often say, like, Mom, just go get a job. Like, you should work. Everybody else's mom works. Like, you need to work.
Interesting. How the times have changed.
Yeah. But, I always say to them, There's a very short window of opportunity for me to be with you now. Most of your life, you're going to be doing your own thing, and I will do my own thing too. Yeah, they're always like, "What are you going to do when we're gone?" I'm like, I'll probably, that's when I'll write my book.
I can't wait to read it. Now, tell me a little bit. I do want to hear about what it's like, because you got divorced in 2020?
No, we separated in 2020.
We separated
and
in 2020.
Then the divorce was just last year. Actually, one day before our 26th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, dating in this new chapter of life, what is that like?
Oh, it was super fun. I loved it. Like, people are always like, "Oh, dating apps are so this or that." I thought it was super fun. It was like having a I don't know. I've never played Candy Crush, but I see people doing that. It felt like a game but it comes into real life. Like, then you meet the person, you know what I mean? And I'm pretty good. I was always good at hiring, and I think I was good at this. In the beginning, like, I wanted to try every kind that, like, I hadn't tried. Like, I was always like, I think construction workers are hot. Let me go on a date with a construction worker. I've always thought, like, artists are hot. Like, I've never gone out with an artist. Let me try that. And so that was fun. I loved dating. And then one day, I remember I was dating a yoga teacher, and he was just another one of those, like, drama queens. And I was like, oh, I'm done with this. And I went on Bumble, because my friend was always like, oh, Bumble's really good. And I'm like, oh, let me just try this.
Yeah.
And but the most fun was Raya, because I matched with, like, Steve from 90210.
Amazing.
Like, really good people, like, funny people, like Joey Fatone from NSYNC.
Shut the front door. Atoosa, interview over. Stop it right now.
Didn't go anywhere, but still, the moment I matched with Chris Rock, none of these, like, awesome people went anywhere, but still.
BRB, I have to get my brain off the wall because my head just exploded.
I know, Joey, I can't.
I mean, from teen mag editor to the...
he was like my breakthrough cover with his little cronies, but
I am fucking dying, Joey.
I'm not like a make a first mover, so, like, if we match, like, you'd have to reach out to me, so they never reached out, so it doesn't matter. They were probably just playing it wide. But
okay, so once we're done matching with Joey and Chris Rock,
so I go on Bumble, and there's this guy who super swipes me. I don't know if you know what that means. That means, like, I think you pay for it. Like, it's a way of getting to, like, the top of the line to say, like, pick me. And he was
a pick me
cute.
Boy.
Yeah, he was a pick me, and he was cute, though. And he was exactly my age, and he went to Columbia. So I was like, oh, maybe we went to college together or something. So I swiped back. Eventually, we talked, and we went to high school together. I knew him immediately. I just didn't recognize him because I hadn't seen him since we were 17. And like many people my age, he's a baldy now, like shaved head. So, yeah. And so we went on a date, and he's so sweet. And at the end, he's like, I don't think you remember what happened with us. And I'm like,
Wait, is Slutty Atoosa coming to roost?
So tell me more. And he's like, well, we made out behind, like, the theater curtains one day. And I was like, zero. I was like, it sounds like me, but I have zero recollection. But anyway, so we are still very much together. So he's from high school. And
this is incredibly sweet.
Yeah. We found, I'm pointing down below my desk because we found this journal of mine from senior year in high school. And we found another time that we made out that he doesn't remember. I don't remember either.
The journal remembers.
The journal remembers.
Oh my God. This is so sweet. because obviously I was internet stalking you, and I noticed you said something like, I'm balancing like a bunch of different kid stuff, and somebody has a show here, and somebody and so is at the other thing. And I was like, is this the
He
man
is
in her
very
life?
much stepped in. We are like a 5-unit family again. He's not dad, of course. He'll never be dad. They call him Papa. Like,
That's
kind
sweet.
of like ironically, no,
Yeah.
not like in a sweet way.
Like,
They're like,
okay.
Papa, like kind of as a joke. But he is like, I cook, he cleans. We do not live together. I will never live with somebody again. I will never share a bed. When we go away, like, he'll have to get his own room. If he stays over my apartment, he has to sleep in the guest room. I won't sleep with somebody like in a bed like that.
The New York
again.
Times just did something on sleep divorce. I don't know if you saw it, but
I didn't.
basically what you're saying, that like sex lives and relationships can be saved by couples sleeping in separate beds.
Totally. I don't want to fucking hear his snoring. I don't want him in my bathroom. Use your own bathroom. If you can do it, it's amazing.
Wow. That is so sweet. Now, the last thing I'll ask you is you're raising these 3 girls. To watch you celebrate them as you do on the internet is honestly just joyful, because it's clear. I don't know you. This is our first time meeting, but you're so effusive and so proud of them for exactly who they are. And they are now at an age where they're thinking about probably what do they want to do professionally for their lives. And as you have done it all, you've worked in the home, out of the home, and at extremes. What are some of the things that you want for them while they're making those choices for themselves?
I just want them to have fun and enjoy what they're doing, and just to know their worth. Here's the thing that I think, Carrie, like, I know at their age and a little bit older, like, how your externally facing self is really important. Like, you kind of have to do that, right? Like, I wouldn't be able to do this if I wouldn't have been able to master the other thing, like the job part and the success. Like, I did that. I learned the lesson that I think most of us are supposed to learn, which is it can't all ride on that. Like, that is a piece of it, but it is not it. But I hope that what they take with them as they do the things that they love is their relationship with themselves, that they keep an eye on their interiority, and that they choose people to surround themselves with that, value and respect that interiority. And that they, more than anything, stay connected to each other, and know that, like, I always tell them, because middle school,
Woof.
woof, like, it's like always
Hunger Games out there.
Total Hunger Games. And like, what I always say to them is, here, when you come here, this is where everybody loves you. Nobody, it doesn't really matter what happens out there, because you'll always have in here, and all you need is like one person to have as a best friend, and and you always have somebody here. So I think it's just, for me, it's about the relationships. Like, I hope that they maintain the family relationships, and that they have fun, whatever they're doing, that they have fun, that they're doing it for them. Like, don't do it for me. Like, I don't care. Like, you could be the kid who lives at home because you can't pull it together. I'll love you the same as if you're the president. Like, I don't care. My love for you doesn't change. So just have fun and love each other.
I love that so much. Atoosa, I could truly talk to you all day. I feel like I know you. When I come to New York, I want to give you a hug. This was so special.
Please, I would love that. Please come visit.
This was really, really great. And I'm excited for people to hear this conversation because even if they weren't teen magazine girlies, there's so much vulnerability and honesty in your story and so much that is relatable that I'm excited for people to engage with it. I really am.
And the only thing I want your viewers to hear from my story is like having a small life and having a life that's focused on your family is really honorable. And like I say this as somebody, like, the Met Ball was just this Monday from when we're taping. And I used to be at that. And that was such a painful, stressful, horrible place to be. And sometimes we sit on our couch and we wish we were in those places. Yeah. And I would just say on your couch is probably like the coziest, safest, best place. Like, enjoy it.
Well, you said something that really stuck with me previously where you said living your best life isn't about what it looks like. It's about how it feels.
Yeah, indeed.
And man, is that true.
So true.
I love this. Thank you so much. I'm so excited for people to hear this. Team, I need your help. If you love it here, please like and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the Substack for full access to this episode's show notes and join the discussion. And of course, follow me on Instagram at Mutha, MUTHA.life for a daily look at all things Mutha. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next week for another Chat in the Closet. This podcast was produced by Mutha Life, music by Ronan Landa. See you next time.